Alright, weird concept. And so, if you have your time, if you have. Maybe it's like this, where you would be going. Wow, that's random. Uh, and it's kind of a binary way of looking at it. But if it's kind of more so like it's like a 0 point or something like that. You have like two spectrums, but and if like you're preserving yourself here from whatever we start as or whatever highest potential, maybe H, um, and whatever dissonance or decoherence is experienced as whatever kind of challenges or obscurity or obstacles on maybe the sides of whatever proverbial path. Um, and you can even look at it like a magnetic resonance thing. If basically it seems like what we perceive as a literal path we're walking that determines where we go based upon our free will is actually an interplay of principles based on a certain potential in our body, which is more or less has to do with the truth, like a literal accuracy of transferring information through our spine and nervous system and information through the brain and filtering it without filtering useful knowledge, resulting in a clean result that gives you a clear view. Um, and in other words, it's almost as if like we have full awareness here and awareness here, but we can't ensure that in between, kind of like it's a wire going into insulation or something. And in the insulation is circuitry, but the circuitry is kind of modulating itself through the way it interacts in within that medium, which is kind of partially outside of the plan of the circuitry, or maybe produces unpredictability, and as well it deviates how one's free will is gonna, how effective their free will is gonna be in that situation, a given situation. And so it's kind of a simplified way of looking at it, but it's kind of like a spirit simulation, where at this level, if we're a spirit, um, then everything below is within our capacity to understand, but outside of our ability to interact. Then as we kind of drop down into that, we can interact more, but we understand less because we can see less. Um, and in that, we kind of end up with this spectrum of emotionality, whereby we're in control, or it's kind of making us go squirrely, if you will. We end up with degrees of deviation from the center line. And the earlier that happens, the greater the deviation can end up, but as well, the more time there is to kind of correct it. Ultimately, it's as if we're supposed to end up with enough growth, enough stable kind of symmetrical deviation that results in greater stability, like a tree's going back and forth as it grows upwards and it kind of sways and spirals, but it doesn't stay over there because it's going to fall over. And so there has to be this great deal of control, and that little variation that occurs as a child, it's we vary greatly, but we can control it very little. You can even put it like that. There's a huge potential. That would have to be like another color. Like as a child, it's almost as if it's maxed out, 100% maxed out everything that we could do and feel and see and experience. But then our control, over that, what we gain as we can learn how to guide it through self-guiding, is it starts like that, and then as that increases, this shrinks down the potential, but it becomes it becomes self-control. Okay, malfunction. Some type of malfunction is occurring. Yep, no, it's not letting me. That's super weird. It lets me click everything other than that. What? I don't know what that means. But okay, we're just gonna pretend this is the white, and eventually it builds in what we have, kind of like this is potential for memory, then this is maybe short term, but then this is long term and procedural. After we've pretty much got into muscle memory, it's kind of colors opposite because I don't have control over the colors anymore. Maybe it's a metaphor for all of this. And so and then it's in a way you can see that as kind of like a spiral. Like this one, the big gold one in the beginning shrinks kind of down, then comes back up through as the beginning of the long-term memory, like the short-term memory, if you will, or the gray, and then that potential for what we can know begins to fill in as the gold potential for all that we could, based upon what we have because we haven't done, kind of shrinks as it becomes what we've done, and then the process of doing it becomes the kind of concrete ability to know, which I don't have a color for since I'm locked out of my color controls. And those are kind of like, whoops, well, even that, it's kind of like one, it's all toroidal, if you will, but it's maybe from a top-down view, kind of going off center here, but from top-down view, it's literally, spirals of, I'm doing this very badly, spirals of energy, and so eventually you get that, but it's not really like a concentric thing or something like that, or spiral. And then there's the other one. Oh, I can't click any of them. No, I can't. I just can't click that one. I don't know. I've never seen that. And so it's like they're all not at odds, but it's like tugging on one end of a string and the other one goes up. Because you have that one. Keep pushing these buttons. And then can I click it? Come on. None of the original buttons work. That makes no sense. But then that's not gonna work. Oh, I did it. And it's like these are never all the way there at the same time. As you develop the white, the gold basically converts into the long-term procedural and becomes what you know, and they kind of but at the same time, it's kind of just like a side idea. They're kind of like a toroidal soup, if you will, of having the same makeup, being kind of inversions, and throughout time they must all, I guess, be interacting. Like somebody who could see all of time would see that, but that's the only time you could see that. It's like a God view or something like that. It would be all the possibilities that you have emotionally and the potential pathways you have that can go from where you are to those futures, and then what you have and how much of that you actually have converted so far, and thus kind of your power and your knowledge level as you are. And some people know how to see that in a person. You can see it if you just look at potential, but if you know how to interpret, but then seeing it as like actual energy or even harvesting that, it's another story. But it's like so I guess these ideas kind of develop themselves. It's as if you're shooting through the center of this flower, and it's a whirlwind. Why doesn't? Oh, sorry. And so you have to go more or less very, very. You can't go anything other than from there to there. If you do anything else, if you think about anything else, it pulls you out over here onto the side, and it could take, like you can't, I don't know how to describe. It would be like a snowflake on the outside of a tornado getting back into the center of a tornado and then spinning uh, in the center, like rotating, because it perfectly balances itself. The likelihood of that would be so far beyond. But then again, you think, what is the likelihood of this system being there in the first place, and you finding yourself in the center of a kind of reality, consciousness, emotional feedback circuitry system? I don't know if somebody taught you to just say, well, that's a brain. Everybody has a brain, duh, and then leave it at that. You're going to be very disappointed when you find out it's a one-time thing and you have to maintain it yourself after a certain period. Otherwise, it's like the warranty goes out. So, um, but I didn't expect to write this, and then this kind of explained itself, if you will. If this is some type of soul energy, or it's a soul, and we're usually in these underground cables, and they're insulated. Um, Monsters would have to dig down to get them, which they